anything tailored and you don't know the person, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's just garbage.
Yeah.
It's too much. It's going the opposite way. And, you
Yeah.
know, I use it. All those quietly quitters are now, you know, using,
They're quietly using AI.
yeah, but not even to its great benefit. They're using it on the lackluster stuff
Yeah.
too. So go to it. You know,
Yeah.
it just, same thing. It's a separation of quality people right there.
Okay, we're back.
All right.
Another episode of Expandable. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Good morning.
Good morning. I wanted to get your, an updated view from your perspective on AI and, how you're using AI, what you're seeing it do currently, because we've talked about this in months past, but things have changed. So just initial thoughts, and I want to show you a video here and get your reaction to it.
Okay.
Okay. This is a video, and we'll put it up on the screen here. How corporations use AI in 2025. Of course, I think this is probably still very true.
This is what AI adoption in corporate America actually looks like. A VP or director level employee will randomly be appointed by the CEO to build a strategy with AI, right? And it usually happens after that CEO got absolutely roasted at a recent board meeting. So this VP goes out and buys 5,000 seats of Copilot, let's just say. And over the next 90 days, only 12 employees actually register an account, all of whom are basically voluntold to be like the AI champions for their Florida department. Point being, the company still rolls out a $10 million ad campaign about how AI saved the employees 100,000 hours this quarter. It makes headlines, the stock pops, and the board loves it. So leadership naturally doubles down. They renew the licenses, buy more. But this time, require mandatory AI training, forcing every employee to create an account and proudly report those adoption metrics back to Microsoft, who then publishes a case study and shares it across billboards in SF and Times Square and invites the C-suite for a photo op at an AI summit in Hawaii. Meanwhile, nobody even bothers to check usage or engagement metrics on this stuff. Nonetheless, the photo op makes huge headlines. The stock pops again. The board approves a new $300 million equity package to keep the CEO happy. Meanwhile, the company quietly announces a 10% workforce reduction across back office and middle management positions. But last but not least, the VP who ran this whole thing eventually announces a massive $200 million capital raise for their new AI startup. And that's pretty much AI adoption in corporate America.
I think he's spot on.
Yeah.
I think he's spot on. Yeah. You know, with every AI is a new product, like everything is when it starts, and it's, you know, it's never as great as you think it is right off the bat. I mean, there's so much limitations, and, but that's like every new product, especially old companies and especially banks, that is going to be that they're all on Copilot or we're on this, and that they don't even use it to its capability. Yeah. And, you know, that's, to me as an entrepreneur, I love AI because like that is, you know, it's not going to enhance you unless you want to be enhanced, unless you have that ability. But so it just falls on the average worker who's not going to do shit about it. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, it's like if you want to learn, you know, people are like, well, how do you know that? Well, I mean, you can find anything pretty much on the internet, and you want to learn a skill, there's somebody on YouTube that is an expert showing you the skill. Yeah. But it is. Very few people will adopt it. You can show somebody how it can help, but they don't do it. And then when you're in a workforce, you know, Copilot, great. Their emails got a little bit better and more work. Yeah. And now they're just sending Copilot back and forth to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of interesting because it's crazy how far and widespread.
And they're all remote workers for that part, for so many of them.
Yeah.
So they all justify, they all could have done it in 2 seconds, but now they're waiting, you know, 15 minutes to send that email. They're not doing anything. So it's all a ruse, you know, for that aspect. AI is not a ruse of what it can do for you, even now.
Yeah.
And it will do, but it's a ruse as far as implementation of how these companies are actually using it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Until that work culture, sort of like the way that you go about your work, until that catches up, because once that catches up and it's like, oh, well, everyone's actually doing this, but they're not saying they're doing it. Like you're saying, waiting 15 minutes. Now that becomes the norm. Like, well, you should be doing this.
Yeah.
And so now, you know, those who aren't have to catch up, and those who are, you know, are just still in line. But I think what's so interesting is the far and widespread. Like, you've got AI that now is kind of embedded in everything from writing and, you know, reading to to how do you
I mean,
look at
to
your
me, it
data?
ruined LinkedIn. I mean, everything coming in there, I'll go in, look for like 2 people and get out
Yeah,
because, you've got all these little, I don't know, tweens are sending you,
yeah,
and you've got this tailored,
yeah. That's what I've
in mail, and it's like
yeah,
anything tailored and you don't know the person. I mean, come on,
yeah,
it's just garbage.
yeah,
It's too much. It's going the opposite way, and
yeah.
I use it. All those quietly quitters are now, using.
They're quietly using AI.
Yeah, but not even to its great benefit. They're using it on the lackluster stuff
Yeah,
too. So go to it.
yeah.
It just same thing. It's a separation of quality people right there.
That's one thing I have noticed about how it's sort of changed how we think and how we write, or it's changing how we're thinking. It's changed how we write, and I think this next generation, if you will, of people, even the current generations, because it's changing us as we are working. It's not necessarily something the next generation is going to pick up and be changed by. It is, but it's also changing the current generation,
Yeah.
and I think it's interesting because it's sort of like how TikTok, uh, it became sort of the place where a lot of the younger people learned about life. They learned about the wisdom of life, if you want to say that, because they're scrolling and what they're learning about what they're seeing is how now they view life,
Okay.
and that they're getting that from TikTok because TikTok's the current thing. I think that's what's happening with AI as well. You're seeing it's teaching them how to read and write, which
And
is really bad.
each iteration to me is getting dumber, dumber, dumber. The
Yeah.
feedback I get each time from the
Yeah.
ChatGPT, it just like society, it's getting dumber, dumber, dumber.
Yes.
You ask it, it'll create more weight on things that don't matter. I mean, to me, it's getting harder to get good production back to new iterations.
Yes. I don't know if you are seeing this, but I'm seeing stuff that's clearly written by AI now when I open it up, whether an email, LinkedIn
Mhm.
post, or whatever.
To me, it's getting less like a
Less
human would
human.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, less of a human touch, which I think is a downside in terms of, like I was saying, people learning how to read and write with AI, and that's not necessarily good because they're being trained in a certain way, right? Versus like the MLA format or like, certain traditional ways that you would learn how to read and write. But the upside is that there is less and less of a human touch, which means people are be yearning for that human touch.
Yeah.
There's a gap in the market there. And so I think that's where the gap for human interaction, whether it's in person or virtual, but something that is authentically a human, is missing. It's starting to be missing rapidly.
But ultimately, AI, if you're looking at, to me, enhance and question things
Mhm.
and allow yourself to work through a project and go through. But to me, ultimately, I can discern between when things are being told and then the actions that actually happen,
Mhm.
and whether it's science based or whatever you call it. If somebody's telling me it's doing something, but the actions are different,
Mhm.
I'm going to decipher and go to the actions. I
Yeah.
still don't believe AI has that good deciphering capability
Right.
when it comes to, at the end final, whatever your business is working on, it can help you get to the point, but you've got to be able to take over the reins still.
Yeah, I think it's for me in my world of marketing, it's very helpful to get off a blank page. It's a good thinking partner in that way.
Mhm.
But really, that's as far as it goes. I mean, it can help you take kind of unstructured data and put it into structure. That's very helpful. So it's these mundane tasks of having
Yes.
to use your brain power to go from 0 to 1 is it's helpful. But past that, 1 to 5,
And it shortens my learning curve when I'm trying to either do something work that I don't have an assistant that I have to train on.
yeah,
Okay, here's all the back knowledge I have.
yeah,
Now
yeah,
out of this. So
yeah,
I'm able to have like an
yeah.
assistant
It's a great
on a
assistant.
many different
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
avenues, because I couldn't have an assistant that knows all the areas that I do. I have to
Mhm,
train them on each area, so
mhm,
it's kind of like, okay, already pre-trained.
mhm.
Now I can get some out of them.
Yeah, I would say past the 0 to 1, it takes a lot more effort on my part to get it to 2, 3, 4, because now I have to learn how to interact with it to get what I need it to do to go
Yeah.
further. And so to me, there's a diminishing return there pretty quickly after that 0
Well,
to 1.
still, it's very hard to build on AI at this time because of the perpetual memory. So a lot of it is,
Mhm.
okay, research or things that can be done in that time frame. Boom, you get it out.
Mm-hmm.
You head in the project, but yeah,
Yep.
long-standing ones getting tough. It doesn't have the memory yet.
Yeah. I'm still waiting to see any proof of AI taking over the world. You know what I mean? Like, you know how like when you watch whatever you watch, whether
Mhm.
you get it from wherever source, and it's like AI is this big ominous thing, and Elon and these various people are saying that they're really concerned about AI being dystopian, taking over and
Yeah.
everything. But then you like go and use AI and your current job role, whatever, and you're like, this is like being turned on to like Excel spreadsheets. Like, wow, this is a great tool. This is very helpful and productive, but I don't see how this is gonna. There's a big gap for me there. I see the product, like the practical piece of it, and then I hear
Well, it's
them talk
still
about this.
kind of on its separate rails. There's
Hmm.
still not that integration where AI is doing the actions of the human.
Hmm.
Humans are still doing the action. So you still kind of have that. You're still not giving AI autonomous, like,
Hmm.
here's all my financial data.
Hmm.
You may have it do one aspect of one transaction, not
Yeah,
take
right,
over your whole life, which you
right.
want to do. But,
And maybe in time it could do
and,
that, but
because, you have great AI that's siloed
mhm,
and then it's, not connected, and so
yeah,
I think you still get a while in connection, and then too the persistent memory as people have farms and have that, and
mhm,
as people are building their own data and their own businesses and their own, you know,
yeah,
and
yeah,
build persistent memory to that. I
yeah,
think it'll really continue to compound. Yeah.
yeah. I agree there. I can see, I can get there when we start talking about weapons of war and autonomous type of you know um, capability or equipment, but also there's a human that's directing that AI. So I guess that's what maybe what they're talking about is the bad ways that AI can be used by bad humans. Um, but then we have to discern what the policy is in terms of
Well, it's
what's
kind of
bad
like
or what's not bad.
It's kind of like autopilot. You're telling it get to point A to point B, but you told it which points to get to.
Hmm.
It didn't decide that.
Hmm.
Now, how it gets there, and
Is its
how
decision?
it's
Yeah.
using its jet fuel, modernizing. That's
Yeah.
where its AI is going to get you there in the best position, monitor.
Hmm.
Environment,
So it's
everything.
like the Constitution. It's working by has to be written by.
But yeah,
You know.
but there is not that total breach yet where I
Yeah.
think it's limited when it's in. Okay, now we want the project out to here, and we're
Hmm.
going to let AI take over all
Right.
that. I think
Yeah.
we're starting the beginning where it's just doing the basic stuff,
Hmm.
and then it'll be coming out
Hmm.
over time.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just not privy to as much of the data in terms of what it actually is capable of, and I'm only seeing in its
I think it's the same thing as
infancy
tools.
form.
Now it's a wrench, and then it's going to go up to
Yeah.
the complicated
Yeah.
robot that can
Yeah.
do several tasks.
Right. Right. Well, it's definitely improving and changing. It's interesting to see it happen. Um, I think that it creates a lot of like non-work. I think a lot of people are spending more time than they should with it when it's creating more work. I think in a lot of cases where people having to learn how to use the tool in order to do the work they were already doing. One thing I think I wanted to mention is you see a lot of disruption in the software world right now with AI coming in and kind of disrupting that sector. And my observation is that it's improving and enhancing certain softwares,
Hmm.
but it's not necessarily replacing the software as much as it is
So
distracting the leadership. So not distracting, but more focusing. So leadership bought all the software, as the guy was saying on the clip too. They bought all the software, they have all these seats, but they don't really ever fully utilize it to its
no,
fullness. And then AI comes on, and they're like, "Oh, we need AI." Well, how do we have AI do X, Y, Z?
and that's where you gotta use a. I mean, to me, and I'm not a coder, but AI, then if it already knows coding, and I know what open source is,
Mhm.
so it clearly can be taught how to code something. So if you, doesn't matter what business you are in, if you wanted to be able to connect your 5 employees, like you can't tell the AI, I need to develop an app just for my employees to do the following 3 things. That's it.
Mhm.
To me, it goes back to like that company Basecamp. We're just going to
Yeah.
produce the minimum that is going to work for you.
Mhm.
So to me, software as a service is going to be dead because then everybody is just going to have their own tailored software.
Mhm.
It's not going to have any other buttons that aren't needed. It's just going to say, here
Which
are the
is
few things I need, and then you build upon there. And you re-engineer it that way as opposed to going out to all the developers and saying, all right, this piece and this piece. No, it already knows
yeah.
to
I
build this.
I
And so I
yeah.
think we're going to get more into simplistic. So then everybody's going to be tailored and build their own software. So software as a service is gone,
Yeah.
because just like, I don't know, think of the things I use every day. Adobe, I use Adobe a lot. Um, but what percentage of Adobe do I actually use?
Mhm.
2%, 5%, probably the same things
That
over and over
yeah,
again.
that's the main point, I think.
Yeah.
I think so far what AI has done is brought the attention of leadership back to the software, and they're realizing they're not even using it. So they've been spending
hmm
all this money on the software. They're using 2% of its capability, or
And I
they
get it
don't
because,
need the
well, and
capability.
I get it because those software companies, and I've always seen it, especially in banking, like, it's important to know your vendors because they're critical to your daily life. So you want to
Mhm.
manage them.
Mhm.
All right. You want to have an area and which ones are critical, which not. Who do we need to rely on?
Mhm.
If someone's a critical vendor, you need to look at them and see, are they a going concern? Rely on them. Well, whoever sells that software, every bank or every business they go to is going to have an extra thing they want on there, an extra thing on there. So then they build so much
Features.
of these features,
Mhm.
and we're not going to need them all. So that's where I think everything is going to go, where AI already has that availability because open source, it already knows that coding. It can build
Yeah.
those things quicker.
Yep.
The term vibe coding,
Mhm.
so it just turns those people, the project managers that were the ones that were able to decipher between that, talk to the prima donna coder and back and forth.
Mhm.
Now they can, speed up, turn what took 18 months into a week.
So then what does a company need in terms of manpower capability uh to capitalize on opportunity like that internally? So they need probably an actual developer engineer that understands how to code and how to read code and how to manage code at this point. And then they can someone who can that same person or another person that works together to implement AI to build, because you vibe code, but I think vibe coding still has its downside. So you need an engineer to say, oh well, this is wrong,
Well,
right?
and this is coming from, the layman's side. You obviously have to do quality control and test it.
Hmm.
And issues
So
that I
that's where
have
that
with
person
AI,
comes in.
you ask it 15 questions, it
Mhm.
doesn't search it the same 15 ways.
Mhm.
So you have to get it to know, search exactly how you want it to search.
Mhm.
And
So then you look at the softwares that you're currently using, and you strip those back and say, what are the features? How many of them are we using? And then look critically at your business in terms of how it operates, how it interfaces with customers, and utilizes that software or doesn't, and then strip it all back to create your own
yeah.
thing. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But then that's going to go into, now does that business have to get into hosting it?
Hmm.
So then who's going to orchestrate and manage that? Because it was the companies before that were doing the software, and now they're hosting that part because you just had a login,
Right.
on their web-based software as a service, so then
I
you
think
add a
some
little
of
bit
that,
more, but then too, AI is like, oh, how do I host it? Great
yeah.
question. Here's how you do it. Done.
Well, how to do it, but then doing it when with hosting, it might be more of a hardware problem to solve. Which kind of brings up the question of cloud, computing with cloud storage.
Yeah.
You maybe not at the bank at this point, maybe in the future, but smaller businesses, if they wanted to spend the time doing it, they could create their own cloud server in their office and
Well,
have all their files there and not pay for cloud.
yeah, and they're going to have to, I mean, if they're going to have their own AI that is going to be answering questions based on their business and their
Mhm.
product, then that is going to have to be privately secured, so
Mhm.
it's not out there in the public.
Yeah. So to me, I think it sort of comes down to a matter of convenience or maybe security, um, or both, for the cloud piece of it, because AI is one portion, but then you have the storage of the data. And it would make a lot of sense, I think, at first thought that you'd have your own data stored in your own facility or access from security, all the things, and potentially a cost. I don't know. It depends on the company and how much data they're using and all that.
And a lot of you probably go through service, and each one of the main AIs will have so much memory that goes along with it, and so much processing.
Yeah, and it takes a long time to turn a ship. So I don't really see the cloud business,
But I think it's
diminishing.
But anything, it is amazing. But how many people are actually going to utilize it? Yeah. How many people are actually learning from YouTube?
Yeah.
I mean, you may be learning, but not necessarily the things. I mean,
well,
there's enough stuff on there to get your PhD in anything.
Yes, but what are you doing with it?
Correct. Yeah. And I think ultimately it's the same thing. It's going to come down to that.
And did you really learn it? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a really good analogy actually for what's going on with AI, because I can sit and watch videos of someone repairing a car, let's say changing the brakes on a car. And that's something I have only done maybe once, but I'm really interested in how it works. And I want to maybe try to do it myself at some point, save money or whatever the motive is. I could watch 100 videos and then go out and do it and have an actual mechanic there.
Yeah.
And say, oh yeah, I know about this. I've watched all these videos, and you start into it and they're just like, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. But because they got the actual hands-on experience. And to me, that's a good analogy with AI. It's like AI is sort of like this top layer of knowledge.
Tell me now, AI doesn't data mine all of the, all of the manufacturers and the automobiles, and should be able to tell that mechanic right then and there to diagnose this. Okay, what do you do with this? Here's a level.
On the opposite side of that, the opposite perspective, yes, I think an actual mechanic that has actual training and actual experience utilizing AI is a powerful thing.
I mean, but almost in very little. If he just has hand dexterity and it tells him, here, remove these.
Yeah. But me as a novice or very much a beginner, trying to utilize AI to teach me or potentially do the problem, that's going to be an issue. Like that's going to fall apart because I don't have enough context and real experience hands-on to fill in the gaps.
You just tell AI that. I mean, I don't know where to start on this.
I know, but
I'm here, and that usually kind of helps you in a little. Talk to me like I'm 3, and
that's the part that I think is what I was talking about. It takes more work because now I have to, I have to placate it.
Oh, then it wasn't important enough to you, so.
Well, if it was, if it's really important, I think it gets back to the real thing. Is like I'm gonna hire a human that's going to do this right the first time, in theory. Because mechanics,
but how do you know that human's doing right until you've AI taught you the right way to do it?
You're being indoctrinated.
I don't know before
plugged into the matrix.
But I tell you what, I mean, over the past couple of years, before I've hired anyone, whether it was to work on vehicle, and it worked on that. They undersized my battery last time, so I caught that going into it. And it ruined my alternator. So I knew right going into it, the battery I bought was undersized. And then when I went back, they tried to sell me they didn't sell me that battery, and they had it confused. But luckily I had my script already had looked at, so.
Well, that's an interesting thing too, is that you as a consumer have become more powerful and more empowered. So those, let's keep it with mechanics, those experienced mechanics need to, actually you're seeing it with medicine too, probably more than anything.
Oh, my daughter,
like you come in with all these ideas. The internet was one thing. Now it's, you have AI on your side. That's a
mechanics
that's a
here,
tough
local
thing.
dealership. They tried to screw over my daughter. There was, I forget the exact issue, but they wanted $2,100. She's like, I think it was a thermostat. And she's like, what's the parts and labor? And then they, stuttered. And so she knew immediately something was up. Why didn't you have the parts and labor immediately? You just gave me the quote.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, parts a couple $100, $1,800 for labor. She goes, that just doesn't seem right. I'm going to pick up my vehicle.
Right.
In between 10 minutes between she was getting down there, they got it down to $1,100.
I had a similar experience recently.
And then
like that,
she hired another mechanic that came mobile to the house, no interruption, everything for $600.
That's amazing. I got to get that guy's number.
And he made a few $100s and did a great job.
Yeah.
But yeah, the dealership just, they lost a customer for life
Hmm.
being greedy.
Yeah. It's really interesting how AI is changing how we're living and working. It's going to be interesting to see how this continues to play out because we're adopting it. No, no, everyone's adopting it, but I think it's like everyone's adopting it in new and different ways, and everyone's sort of meeting in the middle. So, you know, I think I'm an expert because I have AI. I think I'm an expert because I've experienced, but I'm not using AI that I could be. There's all these different perspectives ending up in the cesspool of life. So
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see where this goes. We'll check back in 6 months or so.
All right. Sounds good.